Very good afternoon, students. Today we will continue with the next topic of business laws. As we are discussing regarding the Companies Act 2013, so we are on the foreign companies. So we will start with this. That is the type. That is the type of companies we are on this topic. So moving to this, uh, we have covered the various topics regarding this. What is the meaning of foreign company and what are its requisites? So we have discussed all these things, which comes under section 2, subsection 42 of the Companies Act 2013. So we have already discussed these points, and we are here. So what are the documents that are required for a foreign company? We are discussing this in our last lecture. That what are the documents which are required under Section 380 of Companies Act 2013 for a foreign company. Now, as we all know, that the foreign company is the company which is either fully owned by the company who is incorporated in some another district, or sorry, another country, or by the company who is or the by the com- uh, co- uh, company who belongs to the foreign country and which holds around 50% of shareholding in the local company. That company is known as the foreign company. So for that, the section, that is section 380, has been defined here, which disclose all the things which are required for a foreign companies, and which also explains the information which the foreign company should furnish while doing its business in India. So have here the every foreign company within 13 days of establishing the place of business in India shall furnish to the registrar the following documents. So which are the documents which are to be furnished? First is a certified copy of charter, a statute, MOA, AOA in an English language, or a certified tested copy of English language if original documents are not in English language. As we have already discussed, that if all these things are available in English language, then these can be submitted directly to the registrar of company, that is ROC, for the approval within the 30 days of establishing the company. But if these documents are in another language, because due to the language constraint, some of the company may have the company or the holding company which belongs to some other country in which the English is not a popular language, and it is not a national language. So in that case, the certified copies, that is the translated certified copies, are to be submitted to the registrar of companies, that is ROC, in the absence of these documents in English. First thing. Second, the full address of registered office of the company. Again, the next thing which has to be disclosed is the full address of the registered office of the company. It is the address which belongs to, for example, if the company belongs to USA, so the address of USA has to be disclosed here. Third point, the list of directors and secretaries of company with particular name, nationality, etc. So why here the concept of nationality is there? Because if it is an Indian company, then it is clear that the person belongs to India. But now it is a foreign company, so the person belongs to some another country. So we are required the name of directors, from where they are residing in which of the country, and what is the nationality of them. So we must furnish this information also to the ROC, that is the registrar of companies. Next, the name and address of the person resident in India authorized to accept services and legal procedure and notices. Now, next thing we have to furnished to the ROC, that is registrar of the company, is that the name and address of the person who is the Indian resident who is acting on the behalf of company, and who is authorized to accept all the legal procedure and notices by the ROC as well as the other legal authorities of the India. And last is the full principal address of the place of business in India. Now, where the manufacturing unit or the working unit of that particular company will be established in India. Now, under section 381, now it is section under 380, it is around the documents required by the foreign companies and the companies there. Now, next is the second is the information regarding the accounts, which comes under section 381 of the Companies Act 2013. So it disclosed that every foreign company will have to prepare P&L accounts and balance sheet once in every calendar year, as all the companies are preparing its financial results. So same as the foreign company in India who is acting in India, behalf of its holding company has to prepare P&L and balance sheet every year in the set prescribed format by ICAI. Next, and shall file within the within the registrar 3 copies, and it is the duty of the company and it is mandatory for the company to file the 3 copies of these documents with the registrar of the company. Next, such documents must be in English language. If they are not, then certified translated in copies in English language has to be furnished. Now again the clause is same as in the above clause, that is regarding the registration of the documents. Again here, if the accounts which are prepared by the company are not in English, then again the certified copies of these accounts in English language is to be submitted to the ROC, that is the registrar of company, and 3 tested copies. If they are not in English, then 3 translated tested copies in English language has to be submitted to the registrar of the company. Next, in addition to this profit and loss account balance sheet, the company also shares the list of all places in business. Now, differently, the company will disclose all the material information regarding the its manufacturing units, its offices, and from where all the business operations are being operated in India, as well as the places which comes under the jurisdiction of the company. So all these things are to be furnished at the time of registration of the company. Next, the the name of the company which comes under section 382. So 380 for the documents required, 381 for the accounts, and 382 for the, that is for the name. Now on the, again this is the section 382 of the Companies Act 2020. Here, every foreign company shall exhibit name and the country of incorporation outside every place of the business in India in English language and in one local language. For example, now here if we are having the office of Flipkart, now, or Amazon, sorry, Amazon is MNC company. So if we are having the office of Amazon here, so it is the responsibility of the Amazon to display its name in English language in the front of its office or in the entrance of the office to identify that this premises belongs to this company. Or secondly, it also has to display its name in the one of the local languages of the state. For example, if we are taking an example of Rajasthan, then it is in Hindi. If we are taking the example of Punjab, then it is in Punjabi. Whereas in case of, if we take the case of some other companies, that is, if it is in Maharashtra, then it is in Marathi. So all the language, all the premises are to be disclosed in one of the local language, and another is the English language, which is mandatory. Now next, the name of the country of incorporation is also required to be printed on the business letter, business held notices, and the official publications of the company. Now we will explain this one by one. First is, it is on the all the business letter. Business letter means all the letterheads, all the documents which are being sent to some another person for the, as the purpose of communication. Its bill head. Bill head means the bill books or the bills which are being issued by the company to its clients as well as to the suppliers. Next is notices. If any legal notices are being sent to the company, or the company is sending some legal notices to the other its clients. So again, all this name and country of incorporation is required to be published on these documents, printed on these documents, and other official publication of the company. Now, other official publication means, for example, we can take the example of that is prospectus. It is a public limited company, and company wants to borrow the funds from the public. So here, if the company issues the prospectus, then again this is the official publication of the company, a financial reports of the company which are being published by the company at the end of year, because it is mandatory under the published accounting system that to furnish all the material information to the investor as well as to the general public, government, and all the authorities which are having interest in the company. So all these are known as the official publications. Next, it shall state it shall state the name of the country of incorporation on every prospectus inviting subscription in India for its share and debenture. Now, if the foreign company want to raise money from the India, that is from the investor from India, or the company wants to go for IPO or FPO, in such case, the name of the origination of name of the country where the parent company is being incorporated must be printed on the every prospectus which is inviting subscription in India, or subscription in India for shares or debentures, whichever the document may be. So here all these things are to be published on the documents of the company. Next is section 386, that is service on a foreign company. Now here, any process, notice, or the documents required to be served on the foreign company shall be deemed to be significantly served. It means it deems to be that it has been served in India if the address to the to any person whose name and address has been delivered to the registrar under section 380, that is under the section 380 belongs to the documents. So if it has been given and left at or sent by the post to the address on which has to be delivered to the registrar by the electronic mode. So either it can be sent a notice or any document can be sent by the ROC either by the post or by the electronic mode. Both are acceptable. Next, review of document. All the documents required to be filled by the foreign company shall be delivered to the registrar of companies at New Delhi. This is the main office. That is the main office which is controlling the all the foreign companies. Next, and to the registrar of state in which the principal place of businesses of the company is situated. For example, a company has established its plant in the HP, that is in the Himachal Pradesh, and that company belongs to German. So if they are having their plant in Himachal, the first thing they have to they have to file all the things with the registrar of companies in New Delhi. That is the main central office of which is controlling all the state. And second is with the registrar of companies in the particular state where the principal business of the company is situated. For example, here we have taken it is Himachal Pradesh. So if it is in the Himachal, then it will be known as the principal place of the business to be where the company is situated. Next is penalties. It comes under the section 598 of Companies Act 2013. Now here, in case of default with any provision applicable, the company and every officer or agent of the company shall be punishable with the fine of rupees 10,000. First thing, that every person who belongs to company shall be punishable with the fine up to rupees 10,000. In case of continuous default, the additional fine of rupees 100, rupees 1,000 per day for the default period may be imposed on the agents or the officer who are acting on the behalf of the company. On the behalf of the company. Next, one person. Now, next, this is the again important. That is the again main topic under the type of company, that is OPC, which comes under section 2, subsection 62 of the Company Act 2013. Now, what OPC means? OPC means the company which is having only one person as a member, one person where the company to be formed is to be one person company. That is to say, a private company by subscribing their name or his name to the memorandum and complying with the requirements of Act in respect of the registration. So, broadly, if we say that the company, if there is only one person in the company, that is the one member in the company, and who is the director as well as main controller of the company, so in that case, that company is known as the OPC company under Section 2, subsection 62 of Companies Act 2013. Next, provided that the memorandum of OPC company shall indicate first the name of the other persons. It means the person who belongs to the company, his prior written consent, the name of person or the prior written consent of nominee in a prescribed form, who shall, in the event of subscriber's death or his incapacity to contact, become the member of the company. Now, here it belongs to nominee. In case of OPC, as we know that the nominee is mandatory, because if there is only one person as a director, and in the absence of this director, either he become incompetent to enter into contract, or in become of unsound mind, or in case of death, or if it has been bound by court to not enter into the contract. So if any of the things has happened, in that case, that who will become the next member of the company should be given, should be defined while incorporating the company, as well as it should be filed with the registrar at the time of incorporation of OPC along with its memorandum and article, and the consent of company to appoint the person as the director and the person to act as the director of the particular company. Provided further that such other person may withdraw his consent in such a manner may be prescribed. Now here, if the nominee has been appointed and he wants to withdraw his consent, then it is also allowed under this. So he can withdraw his consent in the prescribed manner. He cannot just verbally say that he will not act as the director of the company and it's done. It's not like this. If he want to withdraw his consent, then there is a prescribed rules and regulation regarding this, under which the consent can be withdrawn. Next, provided that the member of OPC may at any time change the name of such person giving notice in such a manner as prescribed. So here we have already discussed that how what now in this case it is provided that in the case of OPC at any time the change. Next is they provide that the member of OPC may at any time change the name of such other person by giving the notice in manner as prescribed. Now here, even if the person who has appointed the nominee to the another person, he want to change the name of that nominee due to any of the reason, in that case also he may change the name by giving the notice to the person as well as to the ROC, that is the registrar of the company. Next, provided also that it shall be the duty of member of OPC company to intimate company the change if in the name of the other person nominated by him by indicating the memorandum, otherwise within such time which is prescribed with, the company shall intimate the register. Now again it is just an explanation that if the person who in the case of OPC company, if even the director wants to change the name of the person who is nominated to act in the absence of the director, in that case the director can change the notice by giving the notice to the director can change the name by of OPC company can change the name by giving the one notice to the person who is nominated and to the person who will be nominated and to the registrar of company if at any point of time he want to change in the prescribed manner and within the prescribed time. If it has been not been done within the prescribed time, then in case of all these things there was the legal action and penalties for the default. Next type of company, that is associations not for profit. Again, these are also known as the not non-profit company, not for the profit companies. Again, these companies are just incorporated for some development, some service to the society, or for the development of any type of art, culture, or promoting art, culture, religion, charity, etc. So these companies are generally formulated with the main motive of these companies are not to generate profit from the business operations, but to promote all these things. So here, the name of the company must be end with private limited in case of private company and limited in case of public company. Again, if the company not for profit is the private company, then the name that is PVT limited or private limited should be attached to the name. And in case of the company which is a public company, then in that case the simple word limited has to be attached. Next, company X permits the registration under the license granted by the central government. Now again, here with this company can only be incorporated by taking the prior permission of the central government. Without the permission of central government, the association not for profit cannot be established. If any person want to establish or incorporate the association not for profit or the company is not for profit, then the first thing is the he must have the license granted by the central government of such association not for profit within the limited liability without using the word limited or the word private limited in its name. First thing. Second, condition for grant of license by the central government. Now, what are the conditions to be fulfilled for granting the license? So, first of these conditions are association to be formed as limited liability. It is for promoting commerce, science, religion, charity, etc., or other any useful object. So here, all these conditions are to be fulfilled. Second conditions that are it intend to apply its profit, if any, and other income in promoting its object and profit the payment of dividend to its member. Now again, as we have already said that if the company is not for profit, then under the Company Act 2013, this company is never allowed to distribute the dividend either if during the business operation, if there was a profit during the business operation, then these profit are to be reinvested in company or are to be used for the promotion of science, art, culture for which the company is being formulated. So they can utilize their funds in the way or in the or for the purpose for which the association not for the profit has been incorporated. Next, advantages for association not for profit. Now, what are the advantages that are being with the companies which are registered themselves as association not for profit? First is such an association under Section 25 of Companies Act 2013 become body corporate with the perpetual succession. Assumption: a perpetual succession means when it has been incorporated, so it becomes a body corporate. Second, it can adopt more suitable names such as chamber, club, glued, glide, association, etc. Now here, if for example, if we take an example of Lions Club, now here again it is a company, but it is using the name club. So it is again the which is association which is not for profit. Now next is the Chamber of Commerce. Now chambers of commerce means the person or businessmen of the city or of the India. Now CII again it is again a corporate which is not for the profit. Next, it enjoys the characteristics of body corporate. Now all the characteristics which are with the body corporate or with the company, that is private limited, public limited, all the characteristics can be enjoyed by the association not for profit, and the affairs can be conducted within much more efficiency. Now next is the illegal associations. That is the companies which has become illegal due to any of the reason, or the companies or the associations which has been become illegal due to any of the default, or they are default from the beginning. Now what are the reasons which make any company or association as a illegal? Under section 464 of Companies Act 2013, now here association will be regarded as illegal association if its member is more than 50 in any business, if its member increases more than 50 in case of the private company. Second, the association must be formed for the purpose of carrying a business to acquire profit for itself and for its member. Then it becomes illegal, because this is not allowed under Companies Act, that you should work to acquire profit for yourself or for your members. Then company become an illegal company. Second, association must have been registered as a company under the Companies Act, nor must have been formed in the pursuance of some other Indian law. So again, the company will be only called as a legal company if it is registered under the Companies Act 2013. If it is registered under any of the other act, then it may become the illegal association. Now, what are the consequences of illegal association? First is the personal liability. Every members become personally liable for the liabilities incurred in the business and will be punishable. A fine may extend to rupees 1 lakh if the company has become illegal due to any of the reason. Second, contracts. All illegal association cannot enter into any valid contract, because a contract with an illegal association is illegal. So it cannot enter into the valid contract. Next, it cannot sue or be sued for the debt due to it from it. Now here again, if either the company is owing debt to someone or someone is owing debt to the company, so in both of the cases, neither the company can sue the person or neither the other person can sue the company if it is an illegal association. Next, no member can sue other members in respect of any matter concerned with the association if it is an illegal association, and any member which is concerned with this cannot enter into the contract. It cannot sue the other members in any case. Next, illegal association cannot be bound up under the Companies Act either at instant of the creditor or the member of association itself. Now again, if the company which has been already declared illegal, or the association which has already been declared illegal, so in that case, that it cannot be bound under the Companies Act 2013, because it is not corporated under the act. Only company which is incorporated under the Companies Act 2013 or the earlier acts can be liquidated or can be wound up under the Companies Act 2013, and all the other companies are not allowed to wind up under this section. That's because court doesn't even entertain the petition for its finding. So in this case, the court even can't entertain the petition of winding up, because the company has been already declared illegal. So if the company has been already declared illegal, then in that case, even the petition cannot be filed with the court for the winding up of the company. Next is the OMC, that is the one-man company. First is the one-person company, and here is the one-man company. Now there are some differences in that, but it is same, because in most of the points these are same, because OPC it comes under the Company Act 2013, and one man company this comes under the Company Act 1956. So all the things are almost same. There is nothing different, more difference between these companies, but it is due to the two different acts of the same law. First, the companies in which one person holds practically the whole share of the company, that is known as the one-man company or the OPC. It is the same point. In order to meet the statutory membership minimum requirement, some dummy members, that is relative friends, hold one or two share in the company, because it is not allowed that one person can do all the things. Being a largest shareholder, such person enjoys the complete control over the company. That are the benefit. Enjoy profit of the companies with limited liability. Such companies are legal entities and separate from the members established under the law. And this is the case, that is Solomon versus Solomon. Under this case, this case happens that if the person becomes a one-man company, then what is the legal liability? And it acts as a separate legal entity. This act is applicable on all the companies under the Companies Act. That the company and the director or the member of the companies are two different things. They are not a same thing. Next is, only when the company is provided to be acting as an agent of its largest shareholder, it loses its separate entity status. Next, this is a case. You can read this case if you want to go through this. So we will continue. That is officer who is in default. Next topic. The officer in default is the officer or directors who are in charge of the management, who have been given responsibility of complying with the provision of the act and held responsible for any controversy to that. Now here, the Companies Amendment Act 1988. Now, officer in default means the person who will be held liable in company for the default done by the company, either by the company or the person on the behalf of the company. So he will be known as the officer in default. So the section would be applicable to only to those provisions which provide punishment of officer in default. Next, officer in default means the following officer. First is the MD of the company. Second, the whole-time director or directors, the manager, the secretary. So these are the persons who can be pronounced as or who can be identified as the person that is officer in default. Next, any person in accordance with whose directors or instructions of board of director are associated under, that is CEO of the company can also be held. Any person charged within the BOD, that is the board of directors, with the responsibility of complying with the provision, provided that the person so charged has been given consent on his behalf. Now, it must not be like that, that if the a board of director has passed the order that you have to comply with all the provisions of the act, but that person has not accepted. For this to become officer in default, the person or the officer to whom the responsibility by the BOD, that is by the board of director, has been given, must have also accepted that terms and conditions and accepted to work as a officer for the company. Next, where the company does not have any of the officers specified in the clause A to C, from here, these three, the director or directors who may be specified by the board on the behalf, where no director is specified, then all the directors will automatically become the officer in default. So thank you. We have covered up this topic. So we will continue with the other topics from the next lecture onwards. If you are having any doubt, you can send a comment, you can send an email or a WhatsApp message regarding your query, and we will respond to them. Thank you.